So I think we have time for maybe one more question and then some Ustream questions.
Nope. Get on with it.
Just do the Ustream questions?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to keep going with the self-worth exploration.
Oh, all right.
Okay, so what are some common diseases that are representative of issues of self-worth?
Now, of course, please understand that this is a gross generalization because you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. There may be many other factors involved with this, yes?
Yes.
All right. Certainly the idea of certain forms of cancer are representative of lack of self-worth as a beginning energetic seed to that disease expression, yes?
Yes.
All right. The idea of the losing of strength, overtiredness, exhaustion, those kinds of experiences that may be common to different forms of disease can also be an expression of lack of self-worth, lack of support in the belief system, because you lose energy, you feel like you're losing energy and can't act in your, shall we say, best interests, so to speak. You give yourself the freedom to be ill so that you don't have to act, so that you have an excuse to wallow in your misery of lack of self-worth. That's how it usually starts. And then it can spread into different forms of disease depending upon the person and the belief systems that are filtering to create in the body different diseases that might be representative of that lack of self-worth.
Would you say autoimmune diseases, with the idea of the...
Some of them can be, yes.
You know, the idea of the immune system attacking the body is almost like the idea of your self-inflicting...
Yes, there are, again, many such diseases. The idea of anorexia, again, you're wasting away because you're not worth being here. There are many different expressions of this. This is an overall generalization. You have to take it on a case-by-case basis.
Because sometimes people will choose these things to help other people. It's,
of
course. And there's never any blame or the idea that you're not worthy because you've chosen some reflection.
Or they may be indicative of other negative beliefs that have nothing to do with lack of self-worth specifically.
Right. Oh, so is that now you're going to fine-tune what negative belief systems versus lack of self-worth? Okay. But the idea of like when you tell us, well, you know, obviously you exist, and the fact that you exist is the proof that you have value.
Yes.
And yet there's all these nagging beliefs that individuals experience that it just doesn't fix it immediately. Like we don't allow that to fix it immediately.
Because you have a belief that that knowledge cannot fix that. That's another belief.
Is part of the self-worth issue on a planetary basis related to the idea of the Anunnaki and that humans were originally created to, in a sense...
There's a little bit of a tie-in, although in this day and age that can't really be used as an excuse anymore.
Okay, so we're at the point of choice at this part. Is this also accurate that in the creation of a negative belief or a negative sense of self or negative belief around the idea of karma, that the moment that the belief arises, there's an immediate connection to other parallel lives where these ideas are also being expressed, which creates sort of a reverberation in the psyche that amplifies the feelings associated with it.
Yes, it's the multidimensional aspect of beliefs. They actually connect to parallel realities of commensurate vibration to reinforce themselves. So in other words, they pile all sorts of negative lives on top of the one that you're experiencing, so to anchor themselves so strongly that they make it seem almost impossible to change them because they're crisscrossing multidimensionally to similar lives of depression and lack of self-worth. So they're compounding the energy. But again, just knowing that they're doing this is enough to divest yourself of it.
Right, because the idea of connecting automatically with other scenarios and then the way that you disengage from that
Yes.
is first by recognizing that you're creating the connections from the present,
Yes.
from yourself. So
Yes.
people who think, oh, I have this past life or that one.
Yes.
And, oh, if I do a rebirthing, maybe that will take care of it. You know, there's many different
Yes, the reinforcement
tools.
is not actually coming from the past. There is no such thing. It can only come from the now.
Oh, so this is the same thing as writing your own story.
Yes.
In the sense, the story that you tell yourself about yourself, you're also creating from the present.
Yes.
Everything that you include in a negative way from the past. Not a negative act, but
Yes.
necessarily, but more.
But you're writing that story now.
Right. And that's the same thing with the multidimensional nature of it. You automatically write stories that connect you with other lives that
With
are
other nows.
experiencing the same thing.
Yes.
So the way that you can tell that's happening is if you find yourself in a situation where you are overreacting very strongly to
Yes.
what you shouldn't be overreacting to.
To what makes no sense to overreact to. Yes.
Right. It's like, wow, why are these feelings so strong? Why is this so overwhelming that I can't even think straight?
That can be one reason. It's not always the reason, but that can be one reason.
What would
The reinforcement of the parallel realities.
What would be some other reasons why? Overreaction.
Well, even in your reality, there can be belief systems that are strong enough to create overreactions.
That are not necessarily associated with the perception of self?
That are not necessarily associated with parallel versions.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, I see. You can just be overreacting because of what you believe about the story that you've told yourself now.
Yes, of course. Right. If you tell yourself a strong enough reactive story, yes.
So what can people do to help their children when they want to instill good self-respect and self-esteem, and at the same time, they want their children to fit into society in some way and be functioning, and, you know, it's just like you don't have a manual how to do this with your children. You know?
Yes, but we have given the manual in general. The idea is to create a safe space and use your imagination to teach them the consequences of their choices in a space where the repercussions aren't that dire, and to allow them to use their imagination to recognize what the pathways they choose mean in the real world, again, in a safe space. To teach them, as we said before, that they are as powerful as they need to be to manifest whatever they need without having to hurt themselves or anyone else, and to adapt any lessons they may need to learn to, so to speak, fit in to the mass consensus in a way that adapts the lesson to their excitement instead of dampening their excitement to fit into the box of the lesson. That's the basic manual.
And when children express lack of confidence, lack of their own sense of self-worth, is it always because they've sort of taken it on from their parents already?
No.
Or
no.
Why do children
Again, spirits can choose to come in with that kind of an idea because it's part of the theme that they're exploring in terms of their transformation. But very often, it can be picked up by children from the parents, and very often spirits that might want to explore that theme will choose parents that might transmit those ideas to them because it makes it easier for that to crystallize in their theme of exploration rather than just inventing it out of whole cloth. It creates a continuity reason, so to speak, that gives them something to work with. It gives them something to transform by saying, well, my parents did this to me, and their parents did it to them, and their parents did it to them, and so look at the burden I bear. But that's just the way they've invented the story so that they have what seems to be a logical reason for behaving the way they do and giving them something stronger to, quote unquote, overcome. They break the chain of generations.
Right. And that becomes a theme that you can express.
Yes.
Now, the idea that we're now finding that things that happened to your ancestors actually are recorded in your DNA.
Well, in a sense, but again, remember, you're reinventing yourself every moment, and that's part of the continuity that you're recreating, because DNA is just another way of rearranging energy and consciousness.
Okay, so what you're saying is we can just create a new tool to, in a sense, cleanse your DNA, or to, pure.
If it is relevant for you in your theme of exploration, this can and is often done.
Many different things that
yes,
blast
it is another
you with
permission
vibrations.
Slip. Again, remember, you have strong demonstrations of this ability in the idea of what you call multiple personality disorder, where one personality actually has physical symptoms of a disease and another personality does not. This has been measured on your planet. So obviously they are, in that sense, in that shift, different people with different DNA, even though you consider them to be the same body in your illusion of continuity. They prove that it's an illusion.
That's really heavy, you know.
Well, let's lighten it up.
Because one person was also asking about, well, how can you tell if something's a limitation that you've brought on for a specific reason, or it's the situation's not relevant for you and you need to get out of the situation?
Honest self-examination. If you can honestly examine and investigate all your beliefs, and you simply find that there is nothing there that is actually representative of you holding yourself back, then it may be a parameter that is there for a reason of experiencing a process or a challenge that needs to be there.
Does a high degree of emotionality, is that a good clue whether or not it's relevant or not?
It depends on the emotion you're talking about.
Well, negative, obviously. I'm sorry.
Well, yes, but again, it depends upon the situation with that person, what they've set themselves up to process.
So that's really the thing about, you always have to know yourself, that no matter...
Yes. It always comes down to that. Know thyself.
And even though it would be nice if other people could tell you...
They do, quite often. They are reflections. Again, the idea is you can take or leave what is relevant for you and what is more representative of their issue, but people are always reflecting things that you may need to understand and you can use as course corrections and guiding principles in your life without giving your power away.
The idea of people being in denial, you know, the defense mechanisms.
Yes.
Defense mechanisms are designed to keep you from being able to see the truth about what you're looking at.
And that is what the belief systems make it seem logical to do, and that should be the first clue that you're probably dealing with a negative belief.
So if you examine through each type of defense mechanism, a negative belief or a belief that you have about whether someone else is right or you're right.
But it's not about being right. It's really about what is relevant.
Well,
what is relevant here in the information being exchanged? What is relevant for them? What is relevant for you? It's more about being what is relevant than being what is right. Unless you simply mean that what is right for you is what is relevant.
I think the idea is that confidence can be arrogance. Confidence can be real.
Yes.
Confidence can just be a cover-up.
But remember, the greatest power requires the gentlest touch. So anytime you might see force, now you're looking at arrogance, not confidence.
And anytime you see people sort of spewing negative things about other people, and
they're probably scared to death that people will realize that those things they're saying are actually true about them. And they're trying to deflect. It's called deflection.
It's another defense mechanism.
Yes.
And so like cyberbullying and bullying and all that, that's all...
First and foremost, they may have been bullied, and so that's the tactic they learned to gain respect, or at least in their mind, what passes for respect. Although, again, they're not really engendering respect at all. But they don't understand that.
So does that mean that whenever you see someone behaving like a bully, that's an indication that person is negative?
Generally, if you're calling it bullying, yes. If you're recognizing it literally as bullying, yes. Because, again, people who are truly persuasive don't have to bully. They're just persuasive. Yes? Mm-hmm. Because you understand the truth in what they're saying as it relates and is relevant for you. Because they don't need you to do it their way. The idea is they're allowing you an opportunity to figure out how to do it your way. Therefore, they're just persuasive. They don't need to bully. Now,
yes,
it is important at this time for you to take a short break.
Okay.